Hey everyone, my name's Tony Kurz. I'm out here in Delnort County doing a little herp day for y'all. There's these sites that have these cold forested streams with nice rocky sediment. You can see here. And there's a couple unique salamanders that we have up here on the Northern California coast. I'm out looking for, specifically in this habitat, the southern Torrent Salamander and the Dunn Salamander. The southern Torrent is a sensitive species in California. And it's our only true aquatic salamander. All life stages, even the adults, spend time in the water. But they're called torrent for a good reason. They need moving, flowing, oxygen-rich water. And they don't like a lot of sediment. They like small rocks and very pristine, cold mountain streams. And they're just in this like flowing water in the mosses here, if you can see that. And they like to hide in between the rocks, and they're feeding on small invertebrates. And I happened to find one here. I don't know if you can see that, because they need to stay in the water. I use this little vial. It's probably the best way to view them. This is an adult here. Yeah, they're pretty cool salamander to find. You can see they've got a nice yellow underbelly there. I'm going to go ahead and put him back in the rocks here and see how it kind of moves in the habitat. They're adapted to just like sliver into the rocks, into that fine pebbly habitat. They're very cool. Let's give it a shot. So to help see this torrent a little bit better, I also, carrying these little tubs are super handy because you don't handle the salamanders as much, and then you can view them a little bit better. Here is the torrent that we just found. A top view of them. Let me see if I can, there we go. Kind of get the color. They are yellow underneath, kind of a light brown on top, but their eyes are located almost on top of the head. They have a paddle-shaped tail because they're aquatic, so they can, swim through the water very nicely. But yeah, while out looking around out here, there's also another, there's a few aquatic species of salamander. The largest species that we have up here in the northwest coast is the Pacific giant or coastal giant salamander. And they are aquatic most of their life through their larval stage, and we happen to find a larva giant. You can see that there. They will spend quite a bit of their time in the larval stage, and then when they morph into adults, they become terrestrial and move amongst land. And I know they'll come back to water, to lay eggs and stuff, but kind of a comparison here. That's the adult torrent and the larva giant. Larva giants won't have any yellow. They're kind of a chocolate brown, and they kind of have a little bit of a mottled pattern throughout their body. Yeah, they're pretty common, and they don't seem to be as specific to a certain water type, habitat type. You can find them in standing water. Generally, they're also in streams, but I don't know. They don't seem like they need as much of a pristine habitat. A bit muddier water you can find them in. the torrent. So there's the torrent right there. Good look at the eyes on top of the head. Yeah, and then this is just a look at the habitat that finding these salamanders in. There's a bit of a gradient to this stream, which seemed to be pretty good for torrent salamanders. Also, this is good habitat for the coastal tailed frog, which is also a species of concern. Don't find them as often. Yeah. So here's a closer look at the larva Pacific giant salamander. You can see how it's much more brown. There's no yellow coloration. The thin stripes behind the eye is unique to this species. When trying to identify them from a torrent salamander, the eyes are more relatively located on each side of the head versus on top. The torrent salamander has more of a frog-like look and appearance to the head. There's that good-looking paddle tail for their aquatic stage, and you can see the blotchy kind of dark patterning throughout the brown. As these guys become adults, they become extremely large. They can get up to 12 inches long, and they'll still have the paddle tail. Oh yeah, you can see the gills right there coming up from the back of the head. But the adults, they're just breathtaking when you find them. Generally, you find them away from water, flipping logs and rocks. But yeah, these guys this is probably the smallest form of a larva giant, as you saw next to the torrent earlier. But they'll get larger in their aquatic stage before they start morphing into subadults. So we got another torrent salamander. This one's a little smaller. The other one escaped, so I don't really have to compare this one to the other one. But the other was an adult. This guy is probably an inch smaller. This, I'm thinking, might be a subadult to a later stage larva torrent. But I'm going to go ahead and let him go. And I want to just show you guys, if we can see this, kind of how they move into their habitat. So I'm going to kind of place him right into here. Let's just see what he does here. This is kind of hard to do, watching the video. Let's see. Go on, buddy. So yeah, we've got nice rock here. It's not muddied, dirtied up sediment water. Like it's nice and pristine in here. And they'll just burrow into these rocks. I guess he's fine where he's at right now, but he can disappear. There he goes. He's gonna try and sometimes get him a little motivation to go a little bit. Just touch him in the tail. See? There he goes. Nice. Cool. Yeah, so this is the southern Torrent Salamander. Northern California coast. They range up, not sure how far north they range. They might range into Washington. There must be a northern Torrent Salamander at some point, but yeah, definitely a specialty salamander to get up here. Always a treat to see. All right, we're gonna keep looking for the duns. Hey everyone, good morning. So this is just another part of the herp field trips with me, Tony Kurz. I'm in the Mill Creek acquisition right now, and I'm just getting ready to head to work to do some fish surveys. And part of being out in the field and working outside just means I get to naturalize. And with state parks, I'm kind of encouraged to do it, even though it might not be my main job. It's just I take the time here and there as long as I get the work done. Yeah, on a side note, when I'm out here working, I come across different herps, and I just wanted to talk about the northern Pacific tree frog. It was once, I think, one species, and lately on Cal Herps, they have separated the two tree frogs, or chorus frogs, they go by either or, into two species. And the Delnort is kind of in a cool spot where it has uniquely pretty much its own species. And I believe currently they're calling it the northern Pacific tree frog. And everything south of Delnort, basically, and into the Sierra Nevada, is the Sierran tree frog. So anyways, I bring that up because I'm sitting here and I just happen to notice a nice, beautiful adult hopping down by my feet. I'm going to bring it in here. Let's see if we can get a nice close look at it. I don't know if you guys can see it there. These guys vary in color. Green is, I would say, the typical color. Other than that, brown. Sometimes they can have green and brown throughout the color. But notice this frog, what makes a tree frog basically to identify in the field, notice that eye stripe that runs from the nostril through the eye and then back behind the eye. No matter the color variation, they're going to have that eye stripe. That's your first thing you want to look at to identify a tree frog from other species of frogs. Also note, behind where the eye stripe goes behind the eye, it's nice and smooth. It just kind of continues and peters out there. On another group of frogs, the Rana genus of frogs, which include the northern red-legged frog, yellow-legged frog, bullfrog, I think bullfrog. They'll have, right behind the eye, they'll have what looks like a round disc. It'll look like a round temporal disc. That's a good way to identify that genus, but basically they will also won't have the eye stripe. So yeah, this guy is behaving. This is a nice adult northern tree frog or chorus frog. And to view the current status of like the scientific names, what is happening with herp splits, and as far as like taxonomy, CalHerps is probably the most up-to-date website to check all that stuff out on. So yeah, well, we will you'll catch me again on the next herp encounter we find. And that's all for now. So, talking about habitats now. One of the classic places to find salamanders and other herps in general, but mostly in the winter it'll be salamanders, are road cuts, quarry sites, places that have a lot of rock buildup that has been laid down for a long time. The three most common species you'll encounter just when you're out, when you're flipping debris, is the California Slender Salamander. Up here in Delnort, we have the painted Instatina, which is a unique subspecies, the northernmost subspecies of Instatina, and probably one of the most common salamanders found in this specific rock habitat, the Delnort Salamander, which is in the Plethodon genus. I've also talked about the Dun Salamander in the same genus. These species, there aren't that many in California. There's only a handful, but Delnort has two. Delnort and the Duns. So I have not flipped any of these rocks yet, but this is a standard classic way of finding various different herp species. And all we're going to do is, I always like to flip the rock towards me. And you want to be able to flip a rock. Oh, look at that right there. First rock. That is a juvenile Delnort Salamander. Let's get the close up here. Notice it has a Slender Salamander kind of shape to it, kind of a long, narrow worm-like salamander with small legs. The legs are not as small as a slender. And the juveniles, the tail has not grown out completely yet and is really not all too long. Actually, the tail looks like actually it might have been taken off part of it there. You can see it's growing back. They can totally survive a predator attack or even damage to the tail. It'll come loose and then they can grow it back. But for this genus, the Plethodons, note those grooves between the back legs and the front legs. Those can be important for identifying different species of Plethodon. Some of the more unique species that are found in very specific drainages, like the Siskiyou Mountain Salamander and the Scott Bar Salamander, you might actually have to count how many grooves are between the limbs to identify it to species, especially if there's range overlap with like Delnort Salamander. I noticed that the juveniles tend to have kind of the brown dorsal stripe coloration more so than the adults. I was also reading it could be two different subspecies, but to me it seems like variation. Adults you'll find adults that are typically all black or very, very dark gray. And see the cool little fine speckles they get on the side. But anyways, we'll let this guy go. And when it comes to flipping objects, this is very important, especially not to hurt the animal and to just avoid disturbing the habitat as best as possible. When you flip a rock, you flip a log, anything, it's good to move the salamander so then when you flip it back over, you don't end up crushing the animal. So we're just going to move this guy out of the way here. You want to be really gentle with these guys. They're very fragile. And then we're going to flip the rock back. Hey, he's fine. And I like to kind of guide them back under the rock. They'll find their way in, and you can do that by touching their tail. Oh, there he goes. Right back under the rock. He's fine. So, as you can see, there's plenty of rocks here. Let's flip another one and see if we can find an adult Delnort. Delnort love these rocks. And as you can see here, I don't know if this was cut away to help build the roads. A lot of these logging roads back here in interior Delnort were, instead of like hauling rock in, they just basically found a site, a really rocky area, and just started cutting away at the hillside and busting up rock to help build roads and stuff and structure. So let's try this big old rock here. See if we have anything. We got a worm. Couple worms. So remember, salamanders are amphibians. And basically what that means is they rely on the moisture to survive. A lot of these species, under these rocks, it's very moist. Their skin, if they don't have the moisture, they basically will dry out and they can die. Also, their skin is very important, very fragile, and it has to stay moist. And when handling, you don't want to squeeze too hard. You don't want to handle too much, because ultimately it dries them out, and it's not good for the salamanders. And when I flip rocks and logs, I don't like to have things flip too long, because they're staying under there for a reason. It's moist, it's dark, and as the seasons turn and things start drying out more, you'll flip these rocks and it'll be dry underneath, and you know, there's no salamander around. They basically just go deeper into the earth, and I think it's almost kind of like a hibernation. They stay in moist areas underground, and basically will be there until maybe the first rainy day, or until the seasons change. Okay, here we go. Here's another rock. Nope, nothing under there. Let's try the log. A little bit of wood. Nope. It's funny. First rock. Let's try this one here. Nope. Oh wow, there's a side-banded snail. That's interesting. Nobody's home. The snail has been predated on. It's crazy. There's other snail species out there that basically prey on other snails. Lance-tooth snails. Let's check this little... Oh, look at that banana slug. Always fun to see out here on the Northwest coast. I'm not going to mess with him. Sometimes you can hit sites locations like this with the rocks. And I think it depends on temperature. If it gets too cold, salamanders can be somewhat difficult to find. Maybe they stand their ground on the really cold temperatures. It's not that cold today, but sometimes it's just like every rock, you're just like, wow, salamander, salamander. Huh. Well, anyways, guys, we found one. We'll find more Delnorts in the future. Just thanks for tagging along and watching this with me. Yeah, just getting out and doing it. You kind of teach yourself. You know, it helps to have a field guide and look over all the species and stuff, just so you know what you're looking at when you're out in the field. And now we have iNaturalist, which is just an amazing thing. I like to document all my species I find, not just herps, but almost everything using iNaturalist. And that's an app that you can just download for free, create an account. But we'll find more Delnorts. This isn't the last part of the field trip, so we'll see more. Don't worry. So, walking along the road here, I saw some juicy debris. Sometimes you just see logs down or rocks, and you're just like, ooh, I gotta flip that. You know, like, that could have something interesting. You never know when you'll find the holy grail of salamanders up here. Our big coastal giant salamander. It can get almost a foot long. It's unreal. But anyways, I already flipped this log. Just a heads up. But I talked about the California Slender Salamander, but I don't think I've pointed it out before. It's in a different genus than the Delnort and Dun Salamander. It's not a plethodon. These guys are extremely worm-like. They're very small and long and very small legs. Their eyes are really large, and that really kind of stands out with the worm-like body. But let's check it out here. So I was walking along and I saw this log here, and I was like, oh man, that could be good. But this smaller log has a slender under it. There he is. So compared to that Delnort that juvenile Delnort salamander that we saw earlier, these guys are they've got a bit of like pattern down their back and stuff, some small striping and notching, but very, very slender, like really appropriately named, more similar to a worm. And note those kind of large eyes I was talking about. Those really stand out. And there's a lot of different subspecies, or excuse me, not subspecies. There's different species of slender salamander throughout California. And they're finding more and more about the different species all the time. And again, CalHerps is the best way to find out what species. The best way is to look at range, because they're all very similar, a lot of them, and they can be really hard to identify. And range is kind of the best way to do it. But up here we don't have to worry about it, because we only have one species of slender, and that is the California slender. I'm going to get him in my hand here so we can look at him a little bit. It might seem like it looks rough, me grabbing the salamander, but I'm actually, there's a good look at the belly there. Oh, look how beautiful, all that fine spotting. Look how small those legs are. It might look like the salamander is like hurt or something. It's not. it could be a little cool. But, you know, when you start handling them more, they get going, they get moving. Oh yeah, see, look at that. He's already moving around. I'm gonna move him anyways. Yeah, anyways, I'm not gonna mess with him too much more. He's kind of partially buried there. There he goes into a little hole. And he's partially under the ground there now, so it's fine to flip this small log back on top of him. I know I'm not gonna hurt him. But yeah, there you go. That's probably your most common salamander. And the best places to find them are in gardens. You can find them behind your house, as long as it's moist for the salamander. The slenders love the fine debris, and they can be under rocks and stuff, and they're always fun. But we are going to keep moving. Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm out again out in the field doing some work, doing my fish surveys, and wanted to join you guys in showing a great stream seep coming off the side of a mountain that just screams southern Torrent Salamander. And I flipped a couple rocks, and sure enough, found a nice beautiful adult. Let me show you what I got. So this is like ideal habitat for the southern Torrent Salamander. I know I've shown you another stream in Delnort County where I had found them, but this is a perennial seep coming off the mountain, nice cold water. Not a lot of sediment. It's more cobble based, yeah, it's the Torrent Salamanders. They get in this fine rock, fine cobble here, and they're just in there looking for small invertebrates. And it's kind of like sifting through the fine bits of cobble, and they'll be right in there. They're an aquatic salamander. And let me show you this adult that I just found. He hasn't moved much. He's happy where he's at, and I'd like to keep him that way. You can see him sitting there. Zoom in a little bit. Now, this individual is on the very large side. I was actually quite stunned when I flipped the rock and it was underneath it. Look at those cool, like, paddle-like feet. You can see that there. Very wide. That probably helps propel them in the water. There's probably a reason why their feet are like that. It might also help them cling on to rocks better and climb. They don't really, I guess they don't really need long toes. But yeah, look at those eyes. So cool. Eyes right on top of the head. Very frog-like, which is kind of unique with the salamanders. And very rounded head. Yeah, it just looks so much like a frog. But you can kind of see how yellow the salamander is there underneath, which is one of the ways. It's got a paddle tail, you know, for the aquatic life. But I know I've talked about this species before, but just showing you guys some more on my my field trips. And just to give you guys a look, this is, I'm not a big fan of revealing all the locations, but this is where I work. This is Mill Creek in Delnort County. You can see a nice log jam there, but this is the East Fork of Mill Creek. Just, I'm so happy to be in such a place where I work. But I'm going to get back to work, and I'm glad I was able to share another southern Torrent Salamander with you guys. Hey everyone, so here's another habitat of a couple species I might have mentioned, I don't think I've talked much about yet. The Northwestern Salamander, which I'm still on the hunt for, trying to find for you guys. They're a bit harder to find. And the northern red-legged frog. I've mentioned that species. But along this river system, in this forested habitat, you have streams, and then you have like boggy areas, almost swampy areas off to the side where water gathers and will just hold throughout the year. They may never go dry. And the Northwestern Salamander and the red-legged frog prefer these still bodies of water amongst the forest. They'll even use ponds on people's property and ditches, as long as it's not really flowing water. Seems to be good habitat. But this is where they like to lay their build their egg masses. It's a little late in the season. We had some earlier this winter. But we're just going to take a look in here, see if there's maybe still a few. But the underwater vegetation, the branches that kind of come up towards the surface, the salamanders and the frogs will make these jelly-like egg masses that can be the size of a softball at times. The red-legged frog's egg mass tends to be perfectly round, and the Northwestern more oval-shaped. You very rarely encounter the adults in these bodies of water, creating the egg masses. Oh, I think maybe I might have spotted some over on the far side over there. Let's take a look here. The northern chorus frog, which I've talked about, or tree frog, will also make the same sort of egg mass, but it's much smaller. Perfectly round, clinged onto the branch there. This is kind of muddy, muddy water here. Oh yeah. Yeah, these look like red-legged frog, northern red-legged frog egg masses. And you can kind of see them there in the distance. I'm going to get a little bit closer. So just on the branches there of those alders, you can see these jelly egg masses clinged onto the branch there. I'm going to try and grab one. There's a couple on the ground. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, here's a good one. Yeah, take a look at that. You can actually see all the individual eggs inside, and you can see them growing. Wow, this is very cool. These are baby red-legged frogs, northern red-legged frog. Wow, very cool. Yeah, there's two masses right there kind of clumped together. But I'm going to put them back in and let them grow and disperse. Yeah, so I wanted to talk about that a little bit when I come across it. I don't really have a plan to these field trips. I just kind of like, as I'm seeing things, as I'm working, it just kind of comes up and I want to start touching on it. This is about how it would go if you guys were actually with me in the field on a field trip. I don't have a routine or spots figured out. When I see things, I just want to share. So anyways, yeah, this has always been a great location for breeding Northwestern and Northern red-legged frog. Hey everyone. So I'm out and about in some different areas, some different habitats. I've spoke a little bit about the various different species of habitat to find herps. And this is not really a natural setting, but it can be a great location to find various species of salamander. And when it warms up, other herps like snakes and lizards. What we have here is, this is an old mill site, a really open kind of landing area. And you get these piles of wood that maybe have been sitting here for quite a long time. And salamanders are mobile. They are most active at night, especially the rainy nights, the warm rainy nights, and they can cover some ground. And during the day, they'll hold up under this debris. And so these can be really great locations to find interesting species. So like I said before, you always want to, just for the salamander's sake, this might not look like natural habitat, but for the salamanders, they don't know, and they're still living their life under these locations, and maybe even might lay eggs. The terrestrial species lay eggs under this debris. So it's important to still flip debris back the way it was. You don't really have any control whether or not, like, I don't know, somebody decides to clean this stuff up. People don't know better. It's just garbage. But salamanders, it's life. But let's go ahead and just poke around in here a little bit, see what we can find. These are good locations where you have two pieces of wood that are together and there's a gap. As long as a salamander can get in there, there's various invertebrates, bugs and stuff that salamanders feed on, that they can get in there and forage on. Let's see. Oh, nice. Check that out. We got a Instatina, probably the most common salamander, other than the California Slender that we have. Instatinas are ranged throughout the whole state, but there's different subspecies of Instatina. And the Instatina we have here in Delnort is a very beautiful one, and they're really variable in color. Oh, get him here before he gets away. This is a painted Instatina. Check out the almost flame-like orange pattern there. He's in a hurry to get back. Did not like me flipping that piece of wood. Look how beautiful that is, though. Look at that little bit of gold flecking in their eye. And I've seen these guys really yellow. This one's very orange. He wants to get going back under there. There he goes. Okay, I'm going to carefully just kind of move his Piece of wood there, right back in place. All right, nice. First piece of wood moved. That's not bad. So let's see what else we got here. Oh, there's another one. That's how common they are. Look at this one. This one's a little more brown. You can always tell an Instatina from other salamander species. Notice at the base of the legs where they meet the body there, there's a very intense coloration of orange. It can vary from being yellow or orange, but at least the two subspecies in our region, the painted will always have it, and then the Oregon Instatina to the south, it might be more yellow, and they're darker overall. But also notice where the tail meets the body there, there's a little notch. Like you can see that the tail, it kind of indents there. Like it's not the same thickness from the body all the way into the tail. See if I can get a different angle on it here. I'm just gonna pick this guy up and show you guys a little bit. There's Squirmy. Oh, look at that. That salamander, they'll do this if they feel threatened. I'm not hurting the salamander, but notice that white substance that's being coming out of the pores of their skin. They release that. That's a strategy. If something grabs a hold of them, that can put a really nasty taste in an animal's mouth and potentially spit them out really quickly. But so I'm not going to mess with them anymore. But yeah. But that pinch in the tail there from the body, see the tail gets really fat right in there, and then right in there it's really narrow. That's an Instatina characteristic. I've only seen that with those species. So yeah, there's another painted Instatina, a little bit darker one than the first one we found. I'm going to go ahead and move this guy just a little bit so I don't hurt him. Go on, buddy. You can always touch him, kind of touch him in the tail, kind of get him moving. He's going back under the log there. Okay. There he goes. Go on. Go on, find your way under. There you go. Okay. 2 for 2. Let's flip this big log here. You never know what you're going to flip. You never know. There could be a giant salamander under here. There could be a Northwestern Salamander. The species I'm hoping to find, I notice they tend to be under woody debris, trash and stuff, is the wandering salamander. It's the species that they've touched on in the Nat Geo article about the old growth redwoods. Steve Sillett talks about finding salamander in the top of the old growth canopy of the trees. The wandering salamander. That's what I'm hoping to find. They don't always climb. They're just as happy under woody debris. Usually wood stacked on wood. That's the key for finding them. And their natural habitat. They usually are under the bark layer. Oh, another Instatina. Again, it's a darker individual. Really variable in color. So this is a really light piece of bark. I'm just going to carefully place that. Oh, and real quick, notice, see those yellow bases to the limbs where it meets the body? It's a darker individual. The yellow really stands out. Instatina trait. Put him back carefully there. Okay. In the past, this is also in Mill Creek here in Delnort, where I'm at. I work in this area, so I've kind of been looking for herps in this area for quite some time, and this is usually a pretty good spot and one of the better locations for finding the wandering salamander. It is very weird this year, though. Wanderings have been very scarce. It has me almost a little concerned. I have not yet seen a wandering, and they're usually not that hard to find. Hope nothing weird is going on with that species. Let's see here. Just a little bit of, while I'm flipping here with you guys, just a little information about the wandering. They're in the genus Anides. There are a handful of Anides in California. The Anides vagrans is the scientific name for the wandering salamander. The species I hope to find and maybe talk about a little bit with you guys is the clouded salamander, which is a special species here for Delnort because Delnort is the only location they're found in the state. And there are species that's found throughout Oregon, and they range as far south into Delnort in California. And the Smith River seems to be the barrier. They just don't occur south of the Smith River. The species that pretty much takes over the range and heads farther south after the south of the Smith is the wandering, which is, I believe, they used to be the same species. This log is going to be a tough one to put back together. Sometimes that happens, and you know, it's hard to keep the habitat all intact when you're looking for salamanders, but they'll find places to hide under all this stuff still, even though it's broken apart. I can't really put that back together, but yeah. So the other Anides species, there is the arboreal salamander, which is not found up here in Delnort. They're farther south and more range throughout the state. The black salamander, we do have a subspecies, and I hope to touch on that and take you guys out and show you how to find those guys. That's the only Anides species that I would say is found strictly like under debris. They're like a ground dwelling Anides. This group of genus is known as the climbing salamanders. So all the other species, the wanderings, the clouded, the arboreal, their classic places to find them are up in trees or just up in debris piles, but they seem to like this stacked wood and trash just fine too. Even a plain old pallet, might have an interesting species under it. Let's see. Whew, heavy. Look at that. We got another painted, and that's another really bright one. Really, really beautiful bright one. Look at all that pattern. It's a great subspecies name, the painted Instatina. You can really see the notch in the tail that I was telling you about from the body there. It's kind of a pinch, and the tail gets real fat. Another Instatina trait. It's a beauty. This pallet is heavy, so I'm going to move him. Sorry, everyone, for the shaking of the video. I'm doing this all by hand, and I'm really not used to doing this. But videos. That's like what it is these days with COVID and everything. If everybody wants to join. Let's see. Maybe I can just tap him with my boot there. Come on, buddy. I don't want to let this pallet go. I only got one hand here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put it down this way. Move the salamander and then flip it back over. Okay. I don't like to be grabbed, but I'm not hurting them. I'm doing it very gently. Just going to put them right there for now. Flip the pallet back over, and then we'll set them next to the edge of the pallet, kind of where we found them, and just kind of get them to go back under there. All right, buddy. He's on the move. It just stopped raining, so it's actually kind of wet out. He'd probably be fine if I just let him be. We're getting on and off showers today. They just have to stay moist. Yep, give him a little touch. There he goes. All right. Let's see what else we can find here. Yeah, this patch of Mill Creek, there's actually quite a bit of old growth along the edge, the western edge of the Mill Creek acquisition here. If you look around here, especially back in there, those are all old growth trees. And I don't only do fish surveys for California State Parks. I do all the different wildlife surveys that we have here in our parks, and spotted owl is one of them. And staying up here at night, I've camped out here for years. Early in the mornings, or even late in the evenings, we get the marbled murrelet, and it's really cool. I don't usually generally start to hear them till a little bit later into spring and then early summer, but you'll hear them early in the morning, and they nest up in the old growth trees. Oh, turkey vulture way up there. So anyways, look at we got more really great debris here. Again, it doesn't look the best, but it's been sitting here a long time, and kind of going through it, I've found some really great salamanders, and man, this was the spot. This was the spot for the wandering. But I have been kind of poking around this area this year already, just trying to see what I'd find, and I have not found any wandering. It's very strange. Let's see here. Oh, there's a nice big California Slender Salamander. The other really common species of salamander to flip. We talked about this one already. The California Slender is the most wide-ranging of the Slender Salamanders. There's other species throughout the state. Oh, there's another one. They'll look really hard. They're very worm-like, but you can see those eyes, big old eyes on the front of the head there. They got really small legs. They are safe under the debris. They get out in the open. They can fall prey to birds, I imagine, and a lot of other species. But a robin, one of their favorite things to do is just poke around after a rainstorm on the grass and just eat worms. I doubt a robin would be able to tell a slender salamander from a worm. Let's see. This looks really good. Like I said, wood stacked on wood is the best for the wandering salamander. Gosh, I'd really like to find one for you guys here. The place they really, really like to be, they seem to almost like certain species of tree. What we have here is we have some old Doug fir, and Doug fir is the best. You can see how this stump here, there's a layer, the bark layer is coming loose from the actual stump, and they get up under that layer there. And this is the best way to look for the wandering, because you can flip the bark and you can just lay it. Oh, what do we got there? We got a juvenile salamander. What species we got there? This might be a juvenile painted Instatina. It is. Yeah, it's a juvenile. Look how dark it is. So the reason I'm calling this an Instatina, this looks actually very similar to a juvenile wandering salamander. He's crawling back up under there. But he's got the base of his legs is a different color, like I was talking about, where it meets the body there. But yeah, you just lay that bark right back on top, and then you can not destroy the habitat. Okay. Here we go. See? We'll bark right on top here. Some of the physical characteristics for the Anites genus, they have really long toes, and it makes sense. They're climbing salamanders, and they move pretty quickly. Man, a lot of great bugs under there. You can always find them under the ground, right on the ground directly too. Still, like flipping everything else. Where are they at? Where are they at? Surprised nothing's under there. That looks really good. So the typical kind of posture you find slender salamanders in when you flip them is they'll be coiled up. I guess that's just their natural way of resting. There's a slender salamander right there, all coiled up. And there's another one back over here. Quite common. Probably your most common salamander you'll find in your gardens when you're out working. And then the Instatina is right there as the next one you'll find. Wow, look at that slender salamander, all stretched out there. Cool. So I'm being very careful. I'm setting wood back on top of salamanders, as I told you guys not to do. You can do it in some situations when you feel like the wood or the debris that you're lifting up is pretty light, and you know, it's just basically you don't want to flip a rock, something that's very heavy, and you don't want to crush the species. if I'm not touching the salamanders at all, and I carefully flip the wood back in place. Oh wow, that's a big one. It's a big slender. Say like there's a angle to this bark here, and I know if I put it right back on top, I'm not even touching the salamander. It's just one of those things. Use your best judgment on. Yeah, I don't know how a lot of these YouTubers now do all this filming all by themselves. There's a snail. That's a lance-tooth snail. It's actually a predatory snail. They hunt and eat. Oh, there's a, wow, that's a really dark Instatina. Same species, same subspecies of painted. Move this here. Look how dark this guy is. It's a nice big one too. Wow. Carefully just put that right back over there. Good. And then there's the river right down there. No escaping the river around here. It's not a bad thing. Carefully lift up the bark. Wow. Wow, it's a big Instatina. This one actually, believe it or not, I don't know if it can be. We're kind of, so the next Instatina subspecies, which is found south down into Humboldt County, is the Oregon Instatina. It's kind of funny. And I think the range wraps around Delnort and actually goes up into Oregon. But compared to the painted, they're not nearly as colorful. And actually more like this guy. But I think we're a good ways from the painted Oregon Instatina range transition. I have heard of intergrades. You know, when you get close to two subspecies where they're found, you can get kind of overlap in what they look like. But this one's very, very brown. Just like the Oregon, and then it's got those yellow bases as I was talking about to the legs there. There's the pinch tail. So it's got the gold flecking in the eye. I don't know if you can see that there, but the eyes have some gold flecking, which is a painted Instatina trait. I mean, they're variable. This could be a very pure painted Instatina, just a variation in color. It also could be an intergrade, I guess, maybe. But we'll let this guy go. Put him back under his wood there. Okay. Let's keep poking around. Try and find something different here. Just the other day, I was flipping around over here and found two adult Northwestern Salamanders. The Northwestern Salamander, they're in a group of salamanders known as the mole salamanders. They spend almost all their life underground. Adults are really hard to find. They come out on rainy days, rainy nights, and they cover quite a bit of ground. I've seen them crossing roads at night when it's raining, and they're looking for the ponds. I've talked about the habitat Northwesterns are found in pools, backwater pools and stuff. And they'll go into the ponds and create their egg masses, these jelly balls. And like all the other salamanders during the day, they have to stay moist, so they stay under wood debris, under rocks. You can find them in just all different types of habitat. But and then you might come back again and flip that same log where you found one and he's gone. They don't stay there forever. The next rainy night they might move on, or they might just, for how they're named, the mole salamander, they might just bury into the earth, use burrows, and maybe not find that salamander ever again. Well, we're gonna flip a little bit more over here and then call it good. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's another Instatina. Fat one. There's another one. Looks like he's looking at me. If this was the way it used to be before COVID, you guys would be out here with me. This is the best we can do right now, but I used to do field trips out here for Godwit days. This is the first pretty much just herp based field trip. I'll touch on some birds or something occasionally, but I used to do specific trips up here for Godwit days, specifically for the ruffed grouse. This is a really great location area for ruffed grouse, and then dipper, and just talk about Mill Creek and all the birds of it. But I don't know if you guys can hear in the background there. There's a black phoebe calling, and the high-pitched tinkling of golden crown kinglets. All right, we're just gonna flip a few more things here and call it good. I don't want to spend my whole time with you guys doing this if we're not finding much. I got other areas of Delnort that I want to take you guys to and talk about other species. So anyways, I will catch you guys later. Hey guys, I got a first reptile this season. Currently it's March 22nd, and it's starting to warm up a little bit, but one species you'll start finding more under logs and debris when things start warming up is the northern alligator lizard up here in Delnort. Might be a subspecies, the Shasta salamander. Sorry, been talking about so much about salamanders. The Shasta alligator lizard. This guy is actually, I don't think I flipped him. I was flipping wood, and then I looked ahead of me, saw something moving, and he scurried under some wood. But this one's pretty gray. Looks like it's got his old skin on. Like snakes, lizards will shed their skin. And once they shed, their colors are just beautiful. These guys are feisty. They can get quite large. I'm gonna just grab them here. I've been bit by these guys many times. Check that guy out. Isn't that cool? I'm not sure how they get their name, Alligator Lizard. It could be from the unique pattern of their scales. You can see their scales there. It might kind of look like maybe like alligator armor or something. But there's two species that range throughout most of California. The what's going on? Okay, focus. There we go. So notice this alligator lizard here has a dark eye. That's what makes this guy a northern alligator lizard. If it had a pale eye, which you would be able to see the eye pupil, and it would be yellow around, that would be the southern alligator lizard. I'd have to look at the range map again, but I don't think southern alligator lizard even occurs in Delnort. We're that far north. But the southern alligator lizard does range all the way into Humboldt County, the next county south, which is definitely part of Northern California. So that's an important characteristic when identifying alligator lizards. Yeah, look at the claws. Cool. First reptile of the season. You'll start seeing this more. Salamanders will become scarce when things warm up. Like I've mentioned, they're an amphibian. They need to stay moist to survive. I'm gonna let him go back under there. Shoo! Moves like snake-like. He'll find his way under. But yeah, when things start warming up, you will be flipping lizards and snakes. But being that it's still we're still getting storms and it's pretty wet and cold out, probably what we're mostly going to be flipping here is still going to be just salamanders and frogs, amphibians. So anyways, very cool. Hey everyone, welcome back. Hey, so I'm off doing something different today. I'm out looking for, checking cameras for our marten rest boxes. The mammal, the marten. But anyways, that's not what I'm here for. I found a wandering salamander. It took a long time, but yeah, as I've been hiking, I've just been kind of flipping wood and stuff, and I got a double whammy. I also got an adult Delnort Salamander. Two different genus salamanders. Remember, the wandering salamander is Anides, and the Delnort is Plethodon. That's genus. Couldn't pull out a big one though for you, unfortunately. This is just a juvenile, but it's the first of the season, which is unusual. So, yeah, let's just bring it in here. So here is the Delnort Salamander, and it is an adult. There we are. Oh, it's having trouble focusing. So, kind of a slender salamander in shape. I touched on a juvenile that I found a while back. But these guys, this is the dark, the more common variation of Delnort Salamander. They can get that kind of brown rufous or dorsal stripe along the back. But remember, I was talking about Plethodons having the one of the ways to identify them is the costal grooves. You can see that between each limb. If you look in there real good, you can see those lines. You count those, but you don't have to worry about that here. We're in a spot where all the plethodons in this range is the Delnort Salamander. But yeah, double whammy. It's great. So anyways, our wandering, hopefully it didn't wander off. Our wandering is under this bark here. This is a juvenile, remember. This one's quite small. There he is. Okay. So what makes this a wandering? Why is this Anides? Anides is the genus of the climbing salamanders. This is the famous salamander that Steve Sillett has found in the top of the redwood trees. This is a juvenile though. Notice the overall darkness of the salamander with the fine. It must be we're dealing with kind of some light issues here. It's really hard to focus, but see the little fine speckles, little stubby tail. There's no notch in the tail, so it's not an Instatina. Let's see, zoom in here. And what really makes the Anides special and unique are the long toes. Oh, he's wanting to go. I'm gonna try and put him in my hand so you guys can see the toes. So also this species is very quick. They're very fast salamanders. Actually, there's a look at the toes right there. Longer toes than other species of salamander. That's a good look at all the speckles there. Notice the bases to the legs being kind of a yellowish color. I mentioned that as a trait to only Instatinas having. I take it back. It's been a while since I've seen a juvenile wandering salamander. Apparently wanderings can get that too, but all the other characteristics, the long toes, no notch in the tail, points to wandering salamander. Yeah, I'm going to try and get him in my hand. He's probably going to freak out. So, let's see here. Come on, little guy. I know you'll be able to see the toes a lot better. Here we go. So this species loves to wander, and the whole genus really, they are pretty quick. Yeah, look at those. He is a moving. There we go. Good look at the toes there. All the speckles. Well, anyways, he is ready to go. But yeah, that is scientific name Anides vagrans. And you can see kind of the difference in shape there. That wandering salamander is actually more the size of what a juvenile Delnort would be. And where I found it, I'm quite a bit farther inland than where I've been doing the videos recently. Doesn't seem to make a difference, but you see that I've got a pile of bark here just on the ground, and these two pieces of bark were stacked on top of each other, and I just basically lifted up one piece of bark, and yeah, they were under that layer, right in between the bark there. So anyways, I'll catch you again on the next herp. Hey everyone, welcome back. Hey, I'm in another location here in Delnort. This is more interior Delnort, but one of the locations that the Smith River area is kind of famous for. The serpentine, mountainous regions. This is the North Fork of the Smith, and I wanted to talk about, I've mentioned in the past videos, foothill yellow-legged frog. They tend to like these more open, sunny, exposed, rocky banks along river edges, and came across one here, nice adult. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at it. This species is in the genus Rana, related to the northern red-legged frog. You can see him, he's tucked up under the rock right there. Kind of get in close here. Unlike the Pacific chorus frog, which we've talked about before, you know, Pacific chorus frogs are really variable with their color. They can vary from being green to real brown. These guys are like kind of a muddy brown. Really don't have a whole lot of color. Sometimes they can get some like beautiful reds kind of on their back. But notice there's no eye stripe. The chorus frog gets that classic eye stripe that runs from the nose past the eye there. And I mentioned the disc behind the eye that kind of makes these species unique. You can kind of see it there. It looks like a round, kind of flat spot. But this is an adult, pretty good sized frog. I'm gonna, hopefully he doesn't, see if he hops here. Just want to show you, there's my finger, just to kind of get a size comparison there. I'm going to touch this frog just briefly. Oh, cool. He's turning there. I wanted to show you why they're called yellow-legged frogs. These guys are now a listed species, California sensitive species, and not necessarily in this region. It's more down south. Their populations are not doing well, and they can be really quite hard to find. But on a nice sunny day, as it's getting warmer here, you're going to see these guys along the banks of the exposed rocky rivers. So, okay, let's just check him out here. Okay, buddy. Check out those legs. Look at those legs. I'm not going to hold him very long there. Yeah, wasn't that cool? That's pretty much it there. But a really great specimen here to just talk about. Well, anyways, I'll plug you guys back in when I find the next species. And yeah, just another look at this beautiful place, the North Fork of the Smith River. All right, guys, catch you later. Hey guys, welcome back. We came across two wandering salamanders, an adult and a juvenile, and I got them side by side here. They were actually under the umbrella outside. Actually, they were inside the umbrella that had been laying on the ground. And yeah, these salamanders, they'll end up they wander a lot, and they end up in places like backyards. They'll be under your wood piles. They can be under if you've got stuff lying around. But I know I've talked about this species because I've found one so far on the outings, and these guys are in the genus Anides. So this is the salamander. This is the salamander that Steve Sillett has talked about finding in the top of the redwood trees. These are climbing salamanders. You can focus on the toes there. Yeah, you can zoom in a little bit too. Really long toes for climbing, and these guys are quite quick and they move around a bit. This is kind of a dark adult that we're looking at here. They can actually look more similar to this juvenile, which is just has that beautiful gold flecking. Yeah, great examples here. Just beautiful. But they've been really tough to find this season, and just bam, just like that. An adult and a juvenile. You can kind of see the size difference between the two. But yeah, this is just at our place here in Delnort County. And a kind of an interesting thing about this salamander, there's only a handful of anides in the state. Remember, that's the genus. And the Smith River is a pretty important place, not only because of its beauty and its unique ecosystem and stuff, but basically it's a barrier between two different anide species. They've described the one that is found on the north side of the Smith River, which goes up into Oregon, is now called the clouded salamander. And basically south of the Smith River and all the way down south, down into, like, I believe Sonoma County, is this guy, the wandering salamander. So we're on the south side of the river. But yeah, good look at the costal grooves. Those are the grooves between the limbs, the front legs and the back legs. Real nice. Take another quick look at the juvenile here. Just a spectacular color on this one. Anyways, that's all for now. You never know when you're going to find the salamanders, and I'll catch you later on the next ones. Hey everyone, welcome back. I've talked about the Dun salamander, and I finally made a trip out here to look for it. And after a little bit of searching, we found one. It's an adult, not as bright of an individual as I've seen before, but remember, just to refresh everyone with this species, it's definitely a specialty in California. It only occurs in one area, and it's the northern part of the county, coastal northern Delnort County. And yeah, they are a plethodon, so they're related to the Delnort Salamander. And just like the Delnort, they like to be found under rocks, but I think they have a little bit more of a niche specialty habitat where they're usually close to a stream under rock, versus Delnort can be it can be found anywhere pretty much, not necessarily by a stream or anything. But anyways, let me show you what we got here. So let's talk about what makes this a Duns. It's got the plethodon. It's got the plethodon kind of look to it, which is that kind of really long, slender-like salamander, but longer legs than an actual slender salamander. Notice you can really see it on the top of the tail here, kind of that dorsal coloration that runs from the tail, and it's a little more faint on the back and in through the head, but it's kind of a pale green, kind of a green yellow. That is a Duns trait. Delnort will never have that color. And actually, we don't really have too many salamanders that even get this really kind of bright green, greenish yellow, except maybe a juvenile black salamander. So there's not really anything you can confuse it for. I've talked about the costal grooves. If you just weren't sure and really wanted to like follow the keys on identifying a Delnort from a Duns, I'm going to kind of move him here so maybe we can see this better. Actually, I'll turn my light on. There we go. Bring this in a little closer. Yeah, nice. Yeah, just a really beautiful salamander. But see those grooves, you know, between the legs? You can count those. And the Dun salamander has a specific number of grooves versus the Delnort, and you can separate them out that way. But yeah, there's only really one location that we get these guys, and then they're up into Oregon. So a specialty one. I'm glad I got to find one for you guys all to see. Just turn this around, get some views here. I got a little bit of water. This is the best way. Like, sorry for like not giving him kind of a natural habitat shot here, but it is the best way to kind of view these guys so they don't get away, is just to use a Tupperware container. I've got a little water in there because it is a salamander. It's an amphibian, so you don't want them to dry out. Keep them nice and moist. But let me show you a little bit about the habitat. Part of this field trip is not just talking about each species and just taking a look at it, but I like to talk about the habitat and how to find these guys. So we got a little stream here. And notice how, you've got rocks kind of out of the water that are kind of in the earth there. And those are the key rocks to look for. You want to flip those, and they're under there where it's nice and moist. Yep, all this side bank habitat. But always important. When you flip the rock, flip it back to where it was, and let the salamander go once you flip the rock back over, and they'll tuck themselves back up under the rocks. And I actually found this guy kind of right in there. But yeah, thanks for joining me again. And I think I've been covering a decent amount of species here in Delnort that we have. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next one.